Hey folks, it's Andrew Vannon. I'm going to be doing something totally different. I am not going to be doing one van and one camera in this instance. I'm not going to be doing one van and two main topics in this instance. I'm going to be doing something that ostensibly more unique and bespoke, and hopefully this kind of video slash podcast is going to help you, and this is why I'm making it public, and I am going to be hopefully helping you in the topic of diffusing abusive messages. Now, abusive messages are very common these days. If you have a social media account and a smartphone capable of receiving text messages, you've probably received at least one in the last 2 years. So when you have a phone, it's receiving text messages, the likelihood of getting an abusive text message is small but likely, and then it gets more likely when you get a Facebook. It actually becomes probable, and then if you're a public facing person it becomes even more probable, and then if you're like a public performer it's only a matter of time. Irrespective of who you are, you should not be receiving abusive messages, period. It should not be tolerated. I'm going to hopefully try and explain some mind-changing techniques to help you be less affected by these messages of abuse, and it will be particularly helpful to people that are publicly positioned, like musicians, comedians. I used to be one myself, but I have learned some super techniques, and I think I should start bloody sharing this to you. Right, okay, first of all, I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. There is absolutely no law infraction for showing real life conversations. This video is about reviewing a conversation and showing how to be less affected. Let's get cracked on with this stuff here. Right, okay, I'm going to be giving you about 10 seconds to read the screenshot on screen. Now, you're probably reading a message and thinking, fuck's sake, Andy, what have you had to put up with? That's very abusive. Now, I'm going to be giving you a few techniques to take the sting out of what you receive, and also some CBT to become more resilient after receiving this. So let's get cracking with that. And I'm going to be using a real life conversation to base what I'm talking on. So, right, first of all, okie dokie, let's have a look again at this screenshot. Have you noticed that there's actually no name on this message? And also, if we have a look at the message again, it's incredibly angry. Look at the full body of that message, it's incredibly angry. Very, oh. Typically, Scottish men, when they're angry, they take their phone out of their pocket, they button mash, and they button mash when it comes to sending a text message, because there's a wee bit up at the top that says 2, and then you put in a number, and they button mash, and quite often it goes to the wrong person. And it looks like the person was that angry, they had button mashed like crazy, and it fell into my inbox. And even if I knew that person, because there's no name, that's not my problem. How could it be mine when it doesn't have my name on it? That's a tip. That's the first and most important tip to hold on to, and that's one of the first tips to defuse an abusive message. Now, looking at the next sentence within that screenshot. Oh, so is that you come back to comedy then? Just hear that tone of it. It's angry. It's assuming. It's possibly not got very much fact to back up its assumption. In actual fact, in this case, I am not returning back to comedy, and I haven't returned back to comedy. This person's maybe heard Chinese whispers. I only ever had one 10-minute spot out of a full month of shows. So if a person's trying to base that 10-minute spot, that one 10-minute spot out of a full Edinburgh Fringe as a means of return, it more says something about the person saying it. Maybe a person even heard that I did as a private intimate gig in July and thinks I'm back. Well, news for all, I'm not back, and I don't have plans to return. I do not. Now, next wee bit I'm going to highlight to you is subjective opinion. It means opinion meaningful to whoever's saying it. There's nothing really that can be done with subjective opinion, but I kind of get the idea what the person was doing. The person was trying to get me what you call emotionally hooked, emotionally engaged in the matter, but I was not interested whatsoever. You could be blunt and say, well, it's meaningless to me. And then this one, this old chestnut, ha ha ha, and it's called I warned you ... This is another what you call emotion hook, trying to engage you, saying I warned you about that and you chose not to listen. That's the only per example off the top of my head. I warned you ... It's a condescending and patronising, almost finger wagging into your face kind of thing, trying to get you to engage with him. And best thing is, if you see that I warned you ... do not engage with it. Do not engage with it at all. Now, the next bit I'm going to talk about is it's a very, very Scottish thing to do. Right, and it's another kind of emotion hook kind of thing. And it's called I should have listened to ... and fill in the ... with they, them, those, he or she. Right. That's basically the person saying, oh, you know, I should have listened to they, them, those, he or she. You know, that's another. The person's trying to, at this point, even goad you into reacting, goad you into actually engaging with the topic. If you see that phrase, I should have listened to ... ignore it. And apart from anything, you know what? I don't care what other people think about me. I personally couldn't be one iota less cared about what people think. And honestly, if I sat there thinking about what every person that passed me by thought of me, I would be sitting in some kind of psychiatric hospital. I would be in a very, very poor mental condition. Indeed, I have never been a people pleaser. Never have, never will. Not interested in that kind of thing. It's usually bum suckers and arse kissers that kind of indulge in that kind of people pleasing stuff, you know. With me, either people like me or they don't. I don't care. Stop crying over spilt milk. And then there was an interesting part of the message that featured this, the boogeyman. Right. This is just generally showing the maturity of whoever sent this message, right? And there's a good old general rule, right? Under the age of 26, sending a message that features the phrase the boogeyman means you need to get referred to Arndale Centre up in Drumchapel for your mental health. And if a person who sends this message over to you incorporating the theme the boogeyman is over the age of 40, that's when let's say a different number needs to be contacted, and it's called law enforcement. The final bit I want to talk about in this wee bit is the patronising barb at the end. ... Good luck, comma, kid. Don't emotionally engage yourself with that wee bit at the end. Not emotionally engaging with various parts of the message. Detach yourself. Detach your emotions. There was a brief reference by the person who sent this message over to me that they had given me advice and I had hit out towards them, talking of hands getting slapped. Have a look at historic communication. Housekeeping, I call it housekeeping, and housekeeping is basically what do you do with a message that is abusive. Right, okay, so if you don't know the person, and this is the first message that you've received from this number, my advice would be keep the message on record. The phone automatically keeps all messages. If you don't know the person, it's usually your call. You can delete it, or you can retain it for 6 months, like as previously taught. If it's the second time that you've received an abusive communication, but you know the person, it might be a time to gather all you know on this person, and whether you want to take the person to police or not is up to you. But my advice on this occasion, if it was the second occasion of abusive message from an unknown person, I would get all the messages print screened off social media, text messages, etc, etc. And if it's the second time from an unknown person, I wouldn't reply to any of the messages, but what I would do is try and find out who actually owns that number. And if it's a third time of an abusive message from the same number, contact the police. And even if you don't know the person, contact the police and they'll be able to find out through their computer system who owns that number, and then interview the person, asking why they're sending you that absolute vile bump. Right, okay. Clearly this was sent by a very unhappy person. My advice is, if this person ever watches a video, this has not been made in spite. This has been made to help people diffuse the abusive messages they may receive, and hopefully I've been able to give a wee bit of CBT to actually help people not be so heavily affected by ignorance. I'm not doing this video out of malice. I'm actually hopefully giving a group of people a tool to help deal with something that's pretty grim. So yeah, as said, this message was written by a very unhappy person, and the only bit of advice to this person is go get yourself a doctor. Stop the suffering, and what I mean by stop the suffering is, when you get to that doctor, that's the first step of the internal feelings you're feeling coming to an end. If you heed my advice and go to the doctor and the horrible negative feelings you have inside stop, then that means you are communicating better towards people, and the suffering that you inflict on other people will stop. The internal suffering stops, and then the external suffering also stops. With regard to going to a doctor regarding paranoia and delusions, the doctor will talk to you. He will ask you when it started, what are the symptoms you feel, has it caused any trouble with relationships, etc, 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 has it binned you good friendships. But you have to be really fucking true with it, right? And even if that means you're crying your eyes out to your local GP. There's nothing shameful about it. In fact, you're trying to address a problem which is very, very, very commendable. And by you going to your doctor and saying you've got paranoia, you've got delusions, you misread things, if I go off on a tangent one, the doctor will not refer you to get sectioned. But I can reassure you, paranoia, a wee bit of delusions does not warrant you a trip to the castle in the sky. The doctor prescribes you antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics. Most doctors don't actually have prescribing rights for antipsychotics, so you don't need to worry about them kind of drugs. And even if you do get put on by, let's say, primary care mental health, you take the medicine and you know any side effects. But anywho, that was a wee bit of advice from me regarding going to a doctor. And I want to re-emphasise again, very, 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 very few people get referred to a psychiatric hospital by the doctor. And there's actually a bigger pathway for that. If somebody turns up, as I says, so grotesquely unwell to their doctor, they will phone up, let's say for instance, Arndale Resource Centre, right? And Arndale Resource Centre will get an emergency appointment, and not very many people get emergency priority appointments. You've got to be incredibly, incredibly, incredibly unwell to get a same day referral to, let's say, Arndale Centre, and then get transported up to Gartnavel Royal. There's very, very, very few people actually make that transition from doctor surgery to Arndale Centre to Gartnavel Royal. Usually they get referred to the Arndale Centre and they're able to be treated under the home treatment care team, but there are that small amount of people that are so intensely ill they need to go into hospital for their own safety. Medicine would be the first line treatment for anxiety, paranoia, delusions, all the above what the person's suffering. It would be just medicine and things like counselling and CBT therapy, and maybe only having a stash of maybe about 3 or 4 days of medicine at one point. They would not just section you for a wee bit of paranoia and delusions. I just want to sum up the CBT thing. So as I said, right at the start, that message is not an abusive message. It is a blindly sent text message with assumption, emotional hooks, patronising language, and alarmingly childish wording, e.g. the boogeyman. You can't take anything away from this message that's on the screen with any credibility, because there's nothing credible enough to be actually taken with a pinch of salt. This is just a personal note about what we're seeing on this screenshot, right? This is clearly written by somebody that thinks they are some kind of comedy gatekeeper that can keep me either out of comedy or scare me from returning to comedy. This person doesn't even have enough insight to be given advice, let alone be a comedy gatekeeper. This person clearly thinks that they can off-put me, but absolutely not. Everybody has the absolute outright right to either try comedy or watch comedy or stop doing comedy or return to comedy at a later time in their life. There's very, very few people actually in the comedy scene that actually has authority, let alone authority to be a gatekeeper. So with that in mind, I'm going to head off now and let you enjoy whatever you're up to. Catch?